Hi everybody, Tracy Brown here. Welcome, and hope you're having a good day or evening whenever you're listening to this. I'm in my favorite spot. Yay! We finally, after Hurricane Irma, got our screens and our little screened-in porch area here fixed, and no mosquitoes are biting me right now, which is so wonderful, so grateful. My husband was quite the I'm going to figure this out guy and got it done. Because we couldn't find any way to do it. Things are still so behind here, getting fixed and repaired and all that. But good news is we're good. So I want to talk about calorie counting today and all the sneaky ways that it tries to show up when you try not to calorie count, and some of the ways that I've seen people, including myself, get free from that. And so we're going to jump right in. So calorie counting, you might just be at your wit's end with it. You've been doing it for a year or 40 years, however long it's been, and we all know that it takes up so much time. Literally, if you could just take a second really briefly to think about all the minutes of your day that you spend wondering how much you ate, and even the subcategories of what you ate, how much you ate, what that counts for, what's going on, you would rack up a lot of minutes, especially for those that even dream about food. It's a lot of time. And again, you might be counting and not be knowing you're counting. You might be counting and not trying to, and not actually physically restricting, but you're still counting because you don't trust yourself. So this video is for everyone who counts to try to manage food because they're afraid of their weight either going up, not staying the same, or even maybe you're trying not to totally lose it. You'd be happy if you did, but at least you know where you stand. And this stuff comes in, I'm going to talk about all the different ways this shows up so you can know that if there is some just this unconscious or subconscious uncomfortableness around food, you're probably managing or monitoring or in some kind of way keeping track, whether conscious or not. Okay, so calorie counting and all its little cousins looks like this. Literally counting the numbers and having a calorie limit per meal or per day that you say that you can't surpass. Or maybe that you have a certain amount, but you never try to let the next day go above that. Again, that's another way that people do that. The other ways it looks, counting macros, same difference. Points. Even if you're on the track with intuitive eating, which I know lots of you are trying to do who are watching my videos, I see a lot of people basically try to keep track because our bodies have memory. We know how it feels when we're eating less than we need in our systems. And you might not be counting consciously numbers anymore. You might have an idea what you're doing, or you may not. But there's this idea of I could always stop at this place from a fullness perspective because that doesn't feel like too much, quote unquote. And too much doesn't mean that you're actually literally overeating. It could mean that I'm not eating to satisfaction or to fullness. And so many of us have in our brain from our past attempts at dieting or restriction or making up for a binge or whatever it is that, we're going to compensate, which means, or the goal of dieting is never, 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 ever about satisfaction or true nourishment. Because honestly, if you're calorie restricting, that means you're not meeting your body's needs, not just with calories, but nutrition. So you're missing out, and people think that they're being super healthy when they're calorie restricting. Nope. Again, just code word for restriction because we feel uncomfortable in some kind of way. All right, so I see a lot of people use intuitive eating as another diet, meaning stop at get by places versus, I'm done. That was good. And so that's something that would be the opposite of monitoring. You would be allowing yourself to feel more fullness signals. So I'm kind of jumping ahead to some of the things that I encourage people to do. So if you're doing any of those kinds of counting, we want to talk about the function, because if you don't understand the how come, it's going to be really hard long-term to white knuckle yourself not to do it. So when people ask me, well, how do I stop calorie counting? Okay, well, first I think it's helpful to understand, well, how come? And people say, well, duh. I mean, I calorie count because I don't trust my body. That's legitimate. Yeah, that if you've dieted for any amount of time, it separates you and disembodies you from the neck down. You're not going to know. If you have put we all have done this, that we put the idol of thinness. If that's the way that we're going to feel better, more confident, more successful, more fit in, feel safe, feel protected, feel whatever, feel special, then if thinness is the thing to get some of that stuff, then, and that seems like important for survival or for our any kind of feeling okay about ourselves, we're not going to care about health so much, and we're going to want to disembody to do that thing. And we don't realize till it's too late, like, oh my gosh, I don't even know how I feel. I feel numb or I feel nothing. And that's scary to start this process. It's super scary. A lot of you might come to this and have used some kind of meal planning to get back into your body, into signals of hunger and fullness, like actual meal planning with a professional, which I do with people who don't have good accuracy with their hunger fullness signals and can't really trust those yet because they're not well nourished enough yet. And that goes for people of all shapes and sizes. You don't have to be thin to fit in that category. The people I see are very varied, basically, and have numerous different kinds of experiences with restricting, binging, purging, over-exercise, all those things. But it's all a level of not being attuned and embodied. So anyway, you may be needing to take some smaller steps. So if you're a very chronic calorie counter and you're tracking every little thing and even the piece of gum you're eating, you might really want to think about doing some meal planning with a professional to take at least one layer of the counting off. And for some people that are really into intuitive eating or even just mindful eating and literally listening, that might feel restrictive. And it is kind of. I mean, it's not full freedom, but that's not the point. We are trying to get to full freedom, and sometimes we have to take baby steps first. So if you have to do some exchanges or just really loose, like I'm eating 3 meals, 3 snacks a day, and it has like 3 items or 5 items or whatever, that's maybe a way you're doing that. And some people that totally works for. Some people are going to be like, I got to stop dieting and just start eating whatever I need to eat. And I'm not really sure if I'm full enough yet, but I'm just going to go for it and do it. And that's great too. I've done both approaches personally, and I do those with my clients. So there's not a wrong way. There's just a way that you feel you can learn to grow your window of tolerance for uncertainty with. And so let's say whatever approach you're using, and you're going to want to start something, basically. I do want to caution people who have really been restricting for a while, it doesn't matter how long, 6 months, a year, or 20 years, or 50 years, is that most people overestimate what they're eating, which is good to have somebody else having an eye on your food, because you can spin your wheels for a lot of years thinking you're eating enough, but then question yourself and even question the intuitive eating process. Why isn't this working? Why am I so obsessive? And if you have even a small amount of food deficit, you can cause some mental obsession caused by just that little bit of a deficit. So I want you to keep that in mind. It doesn't have to be a huge deficit of getting your needs met. And so people will say, well, I'm not for sure how much I need, so I didn't eat. Here's a tip for you. We'll eat a couple more bites and see what happens. See if over the course of a couple of weeks, if you eat a little bit more than you think you should, with quotes, or need, see what happens. See if you get a little bit more calm. Okay, so that's one thing you might want to try. Another thing is, if you are graduating from a little bit more loose structure around your eating to get enough, and it feels more stable and less chaotic, and I know that you're still going to have those thoughts in your head. You're still going to know how much probably is in an apple, or how much is in a piece of bread, or a handful of nuts, or whatever it is. And let's say you know the numbers. What I would love for you to push yourself with is staying connected with the sensations you feel, the hunger, fullness sensations in your body. And even if you know, you say trusting with, well, my body knows what this is. It's honestly fairly irrelevant what that number is, because one day this number is just right, and another day it could be totally I can need 3 times that much. And that's, bodies have variation in how much they need day to day and week to week, and depending on our cycles and our sickness and how hungry and full or whatever. So I have a comment here saying that numbers are just automatic. They're in my head. That's where it's really important for you when you hear the numbers to say, yeah, I know, and what's going on with my body? Because by doing something even a smidge bit different, you are building a new neural pathway to start to learn more trust, to start to be more embodied. And eventually, it might take you years to do this, by the way. It might take you, let's say you start this process today after this video. You hear the numbers in your head and you're saying, you know what, that's great. I know that's what it is. And what do I need right now? How satisfied do I feel? And you might, if you're being honest, notice it like, I think I'm okay. And you're like, no, I don't think that's enough. And then you're going to get down to the deeper stuff, like feeling uncomfortable with the fact that you need what you need or need more. And that's got a whole bunch of stuff coupled with it in terms of like worthiness and needs and showing up and being visible and all that. And so that would need to be worked on, definitely with yourself or with others, to work through that. So it took me years to basically unremember all those calorie numbers. So give yourself some grace. It's going to take you some time and effort, honestly. So every time you hear it, there's a level of like, I hear you, and moving on. Now, for some of us, you might not be thinking about calories that much, but when it really gets loud in your head and you're really ruminating on it, be sure that there's something going on. That has a function. And so a lot of people use this as a way of being feeling certain about something, but it's not really about food. It's about certainty in your life. It's about certainty of, am I okay? Am I safe? Am I whatever? And then usually those are going to happen around times of any kind of uncertainty. Changes in your schedule, you moved to a new house, you just had a kid, and you used that approach probably when you were very young before you started calorie counting. You probably were vigilant about other things, and that has a lot more to do with your nervous system and your sense of like okayness in your world. And so that needs, to be looked at as well with do you do exploring, you think about your past, some stuff might come up, please get support about that. That's what I do, is what other, professionals do who are really trained in, especially some of this decoding and somatic work, is that, really able to like uncouple this need to use food as a way to get safety and certainty, and learn how to, attached to something in your present moment that's good and safe now, that's outside of all those other ways of functioning. So that takes time to kind of get more secure attachment with yourself and the world and others and all that. So so know that like anytime you're having some of that rumination around calories or macros, I should go back on a diet, there's something going on about this need to go back to something that seems familiar, safe. Know that it's not, of course, and you all know this probably from listening to any of my videos, that like, the effects of, calorie counting or restricting or binging or whatever we're doing, it's small. Do I know that it provides some relief to your nervous system and your anxiety or pushing down feelings? Yes, it totally does. Otherwise we wouldn't do it. But I also know that it's so small and lasting, and it's also the reason why people go back to diets over and over and over and loop and loop and loop over and over again. And, by not calorie counting, you are basically, when I say not calorie counting, when you're choosing to do something else and try to be more attuned to your body, you're building, again, a new neural pathway. And it's a really radical thing that you are doing that much care for yourself. It's huge. Your willingness and your desire to do that. And to recognize when I want to go back on a diet, when I want to count, what I'm really saying is, obviously, I feel really uncomfortable. And it might be, in your mind, you feel really uncomfortable, or it might be just sensorily in your body, like, oh my gosh, all I can feel right now is like tightness in my chest, or my jaw feels really tight, or I feel like just queasy. And we start to make that mean I feel too much, and there's too much in me. And then we want to restrict, because that's how we originally used, and that gave us some relief. Counting, restricting, okay, now I feel better. Or uncomfortable, binging, feel better, and here's the loop. And so what I want you to consider And then if you binge and you feel guilty about that, then you restrict. So you got this really vicious cycle of physically uncomfortable, sensorily, emotionally, restrict or binge to like bring some stability in your system. And then if you have some guilt about that, or you have some other physical manifestations of that, then we go back around and around. So it is all a cycle, and part of the interrupting process of all of this is, wherever you can do. And if it feels too scary to like not count every meal or whatever, start small. Start small to build your window of tolerance for it. So, and we want to grow that. So that means that you might just not count one meal a day, or you might decide like, I'm not going to count this day because I have a lot of support, and if I catch myself counting, I'm going to make it known, or I'm going to really start like focusing on like what's good around me and orient myself to what's good around me, and follow what I know has been helpful for me in the past. So I think I could talk about this for an hour. I actually don't have an hour, or I would. But I hope that those of you who are listening, just jumping in late, go back and listen to the beginning of this to get the sense of what I'm talking about here at the end. But no, calorie counting is just another way that we're trying to manage something. And it's not a weight, because our bodies are perfectly capable of weighing exactly what is when I say natural, what it means like where I can best function mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and we are wired for that ability. We have been disconnected from it for however many years, and we are thinking that like if I count, then I'll know, then I'll be okay. And that's where I want to also think about you really keeping yourself very inundated around people who do this, who are true and body regulated eaters and attuned eaters, intuitive eaters, whichever term you use and you follow and all those kind of things. But be around those type of people and even ask them questions about what that feels like, or how do they know. And again, be very careful, because some people think that they're pretty normal eaters, but they have a little bit of fat phobia or a little bit of watching it too. So if you feel that's happening, trust that that's actually happening, and they're not probably your best role model, even though they're probably wonderful. But you want to find someone who's really, really there if you can. So I think that's it for now. So some of the tips were, if you needed to have a little bit of planning and move away from calorie counting slowly, that's totally fine. 2, if you're at that stage where your signals are fairly accurate and you hear the numbers, the option is to stay ruminating on those numbers, or acknowledge them and say, no, my body says this. And actually, it's a little bonus tip for you, is and this is something I told one of my clients this morning, is I asked her, I want you to start separating out your sensations. So here's generally, based on my hunger fullness chart, what the sensations feel like. If you don't have that chart, go to my website and you can get my free gift, and it has it on there. I think actually it's like tracybrownrd.com free-gift, something like that. And so you can get that if you don't have it already. And it has some really good descriptors, written out in chart form, and also written down like in, if you like to just read things, it has that too. So it'll give you some ideas. So separate out that from your other sensations of, like, let's say if you're anxious and your anxiousness feels like heart racing in your chest, that's not fullness. That's sensation. And that might be anxiety, or that might be, if it's tightness, it might be heaviness, or maybe shame or sadness or whatever, but that's not fullness. That might feel like emotional fullness, but that's not physical, like hunger, body, digestion, fullness. Okay? So that's your bonus tip. Start learning to separate out things. Okay? I hope this was really valuable to y'all today and was helpful. Let me know if it wasn't. I'd love to hear from you. Just a quick little thing. 2 little announcements. I am going to be reopening my self-study here real shortly, in the next month or 2. Actually, hopefully this month. Really excited about that, where you can get all kinds of information, audios just like this for like 6 months straight, each week, lots of stuff. Or if you're listening to this and you're a professional and you want to learn how to teach this stuff in a really deep, impactful way, I don't do surfacey stuff. I teach really, really deep coaching and counseling skills, and helping people get to the heart of things and get free as soon as you can, because our life is short. And I, for one, am not interested in anything that's not life affirming. And so we don't have time to waste. All right. So thank you so much. I hope you're all doing great. And I will see you next time in the next video. Thank you. Bye.